All right, but here's Kyle Shanahan, who just spoke at the podium moments ago, addressed a myriad of subjects, including kind of the big one from the weekend, and the owner, Jed York. And here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say.
Yeah, I got to talk to Jed the last 2 days and today. Obviously, it's a very tough situation. I mean, views for the organization going forward is the same as usual. I mean, there won't be any difference in that. But I know it's extremely fresh. I think it's a very, very personal situation. I got a lot of respect for Jed. I got a lot of respect for Danielle. Their family does mean a lot to me. So I'm like, with it being this personal, I'm trying as hard as I can to keep it that way.
So there's Kyle Shanahan talking about the owner.
He cares about respect. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Kyle Shanahan also, it's not exactly the same thing, but Shanahan also dealt with a lot of personal stuff this offseason, having gone through his car accident, and I'm sure the aftermath of that, and, basically taking ownership for what went down, phone dropped. And, I think that this organization in many ways is glued together by Kyle. Like, before Kyle Shanahan got here, it was largely in disarray. People were not thinking about the Niners as the crown jewel of Bay Area sports. And I think Kyle Shanahan took them from that spot to now where, Kyle Shanahan is taken up for the owner. I think they have a good personal relationship. This is going to be his 10th season. Kyle Shanahan he has almost as many playoff wins, not Super Bowls, but he has almost as many playoff wins as Bill Walsh. Like, Kyle Shanahan has been here for a very, very long time, and I think he probably feels some sort of not debt, but he feels
back.
He's got to have Jed York's back.
Because to be honest, like you said, I forget the day, but when Kyle got, when this accident happened, it kind of was the same thing. Again, it was a mistake, dropping your phone or whatnot. But Evan, when you hear that, do you change what was number one on your list in regard to York and this being a distraction in regard to the offseason after you hear Kyle address it that way, which he addressed it exactly how I thought he was going to? He's friend, family, we got his back. I talked to him. Not much more to say after that, but you talked about giving Kyle that I called it a hell of a compliment by keeping this thing together. He's the glue. Do you feel more relieved now about the whole Jed York situation kind of being, something that could not tear away at the team, but outside of a bad look, I don't know how it's going to have a bad impact on the field, especially led by Kyle.
I mean, I think Shanahan's a big reason as to why it's not going to impact much, and why this won't have a huge effect on the football team. Here's Kyle Shanahan, more from the head coach of the 49ers, who, again, earlier today after practice was asked about Jed York and his arrest this weekend. Here's what he had to say about how things will continue to go.
No, it's the same as always. I mean, Jed has been as good as it gets since I've been here on letting the football people make football decisions. I mean, Jed always wants to be informed and a part of things, but Jed has been exactly what he said he would be and letting us make those decisions. And he always wants to know about them and stuff. And whether he's here in the building or a text away or on a phone call, that doesn't change anything.
So it sounds like, I mean, again, this is Kyle Shanahan. I don't think this was in his job description, but he's being tasked right now with doing some damage control. Speaking about what's going on behind the scenes, and he's telling you, we're just going to keep moving forward. Nothing changes.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I do believe he has a real relationship with York. Obviously, York hired him, but the bottom line is, Evan, you could say all the dog and pony stuff you want at work, and I love everybody, and I got this relationship with Evan, but you really never truly know how real it is until somebody's in a situation that they didn't put themselves in, that happened to, they stumble upon. But right there is Kyle Shanahan having his brother's back, and I'm calling Jed his brother in this case, and you could tell he's sick for him. But after that, what do you do if you're Kyle? But what he said, it's not going to change our everyday, how we prepare for this season and game moving forward.
And then will Jed York be away from the team, I'm assuming to start the year?
I mean, it's been like that this summer anyways. with him being out in Ohio and things like that. So there'd be no difference right now. He hasn't been here for training camp.
Status quo from Kyle. And then this is on how players will potentially deal with answering questions about the owner of the 49ers.
Yeah, I think you got to always be smart when you have situations like that, just not make it more, not make yourself a part of it. But that's what these guys deal with their whole careers. I mean, they got cameras in them all the time. They got cameras in their face right after games when they're not feeling right or something very emotional could have happened. When dealing with, I feel something like this is actually easier for them than some of the stuff they have to deal with in the heat of battle with things more personal to themselves.
I think that this is where the 49ers should feel fortunate to have Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, because if they were not as well-versed in the NFL world, not just because of their experience, with the Niners themselves, but just John Lynch is a player, a Hall of Fame talent, now obviously a general manager. Kyle Shanahan growing up in the game and being a coordinator from the time that he was in his early 20s now to where he's going on a 10-year head coach. I think this would be a little more difficult to handle. And I think that their ability to not make this go away, but to forge on, highlights just how good they are at the other things outside of football, and go again at how fortunate the Niners are that those are the two men in charge.
Yeah, and I'll say this to that, Evan. I feel like that's their job description. And, this is a situation. He definitely, Kyle, didn't open Pandora's box. And why would he do that? But the bottom line was that was like, State of the Union from the president or anybody on the president's staff saying we got it under control. And I do believe that. But, Evan, tell me if I'm wrong or being nosy. I assume Jed York, just as owner, is here in the Bay Area all the time. Him in Cleveland, it sounds like that's been for a while. I thought that was odd. Now, you can say, Goo, why is that odd? But the team that he owns and practices and does their thing getting ready for the seasons in the Bay, I don't know how long he's been in Ohio. I thought that was odd.
Well, Shanahan just said basically Jed wants to be kept abreast about what happens, but he's pretty hands-off. So maybe that's the way he likes it. It's like, hey, I'll be out there for games and
right. I'm
happy to let you guys kind of run the show. But I think Jed probably learned from his early time being involved, especially during the Harbaugh years. It's like maybe it isn't always the best to be just in the mix with everything. And it doesn't sound like that's who he is. It sounds like he does want to stay out of sight and out of mind. And it sounds like also that's how the relationship has worked best.
And that's how I'd want it to be if I were a coach is, the owner, don't meddle. Just handle your business. Let me know, if what I need, can you help me with that? But, Evan, I just got to say something because you said, he's well-versed, Kyle. But I got to believe, and I got to be careful here, that wasn't easier for him to do, Kyle. But the fact that he was in some, we'll call it hot water, or people had questions about his situation, he kind of just went through that. Obviously, different subject matters. But, man, I thought he handled that smooth. We got it. It won't affect the team, and we keep moving.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app and now broadcasting from the Laughing Monk Studios. We started the show talking about some of the things that have made this a difficult, maybe for some, borderline disastrous offseason for the Niners. The owner, the car accident, Ayuk stuff, the anxiety of age with the Niners. But when you hear Kyle address that issue with Jed York and, kind of just shoot everything down, talking about his players and reminding them that they don't want to make themselves a story the way that Jed York kind of did.
And Kyle, to that matter.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I think he also did a pretty good job diffusing his own situation, right? He was the one who said, actually, this is wrong. I was at fault.
All the reporters in the office to give him that.
Yeah, and people can think what they think, and, there's always going to be speculation involved, but he did his best to diffuse it. I think the Niners are trying to diffuse this Jed York situation. Does that give you more confidence that this does just go away?
It does, in the sense that I don't want to, give out flowers because that's too strong. But why I told you when we started the show, was this a big deal? In my world, I didn't think it was a big deal in regard to what's going to happen between the coach and the players. And that was before we heard that sound, but that's, Evan, why I kind of felt that way, because Kyle said it. It's real, it's possible, and I guess with a situation like this and his, you can't be fake. You got to just kind of tackle it, be real, and move on. And just hearing them say that now, I really feel like this won't derail them at all, this Jed York situation, which is the last situation that happened just a couple days ago.
Do you think that it's funny, like when I think of the Niners, I think of a front office that is stable, that has a lot of experience. And I guess my mind goes to the Giants because we saw the way that Buster Posey handled the Pride Night situation.
A debacle.
Wasn't good. You're seeing the way that the Niners are pretty much just shooting down any thought that their off-season issues, of which there's been a litany of, will become a distraction. I just think it's interesting comparing the two organizations and thinking about the way that they've handled them. Like the Giants have not done a good job. And the Niners, it feels like well, let me ask you this, Scoop. Do you think that some of the off-the-field stuff that the Giants have had to answer for has impacted their play on the field?
Man, they're so bad. I don't know how to gauge that. But I'll say this to you, Evan, and you ain't asking, so I'll let you down, but I'll give it to you anyway. I think they've alienated a portion of their fan base that is going to be held to get them back. And I'll stand on that. That's how bad of a debacle and tone deaf the Giants sounded when trying to do the right thing, shout out Spike Lee, but not doing it in a presidential way that I feel like the Niners did for Kyle and Kyle doing for their owner. Like, I think that means something. So as far as the play on the field, I don't feel like that's why they're 25 under. I just feel like that wasn't up to the players, the way that the Giants handled the Pride Night. That was on Buster, who should have been better. That was on people above Buster that should have known, hey, let me handle this, I'll speak. So I don't put that much on the players in regard to the Giants.
Yeah, I'm largely with you. I just think it's interesting that the Giants season has gone in such a poor direction. Does it have much effect on their play? Maybe not, but
I kind of wish the answer was yes, and then that could explain some of, the lackluster play from the Giants. But I feel like now they're devoid of talent. That's you got real major problems. But if you had told me it was kind of this public relation thing has sapped in or got to the players and that's why they weren't themselves, I kind of would feel better about where the Giants are, but I don't really feel that.
I mean, I don't know how it manifests, but you can't tell me that there weren't players on the Giants that felt ire from the fan base because of how Buster handled things in the public eye. Like, there were people who were protesting outside of Oracle Park who...
and are still mad.
Yeah. Hell, we talked to a few at the cafeteria when it happened who said, I'm not going to any more Giants games this year. You can't tell me that the players don't feel that from the fan base, especially at one of the best ballparks in the country, if not the best, one of usually the best home crowds in the major leagues. And you can't tell me that they don't feel that. And it's not supposed to affect their play, but I think as human beings, you can't just ignore it. And so that's why, to bring it back to what Shanahan is talking about with Jed York, I do think that the way that the Niners are handling this, that's why I believe that it's not going to be as big of an issue, because we've seen what happens when you don't handle it the right way just months ago. And the way that this season for the Giants has totally spiraled. They're not as good as the Niners, but their season still has spiraled. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Niners are getting geared up for a year. Their owner does this 2.5 weeks before the season starts. And it already feels like Shanahan and Lynch and the entire team are going to be able to just put that behind them.
Yeah, and it's why I gave all the kudos to the Niners FO group as opposed to the Giants faceless group outside of Buster Posey, because that's what it feels like to me. But, yeah, Evan, I don't want to get too much. I don't want to give, baskets of flowers to Kyle and John, or especially Kyle, because we just heard that sound. But it was kind of on brand of, man, just be real, acknowledge, the mistake. you got your brother's back. We understand it. He made a mistake. I'm talking about Jed York, the owner, and you keep moving. And that's exactly what he did.
And for those who didn't hear earlier, to me, this is kind of the most poignant part about Shanahan in regards to how it impacts his players, whether or not they have to answer questions about the owner.
Yeah, I think you got to always be smart when you have situations like that, just not make it more, not make yourself a part of it. But that's what these guys deal with their whole careers. I mean, they got cameras in them all the time. They got cameras in their face right after games when they're not feeling right or something very emotional could have happened. You know, when dealing with, I feel something like this is actually easier for them than some of the stuff they have to deal with in the heat of battle with things more personal to themselves.
Why do you feel like he thought it might be easier? Just because it's none of their business?
Yeah, and they got to worry about what they do to avoid those pitfalls or traps. But that's what message I got from him. Like, yeah, keep your head on the swivel. There's stuff out here that, you can make a wrong decision. And now we're talking about Evan Giddings, and we don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that I'm still not fully on board yet with is that if they start to lose games, I don't know if they'll be asked questions about it, Goo. You'd imagine that the media would get this out of the way the next week or so, or maybe it's when they're doing media and press in Australia. I imagine if Brock Purdy goes back on the Pat McAfee show or is with Rich Eisen, someone will probably ask him about it. Hey, what's the temperature in the locker room? How are you guys feeling when you got the news? All that kind of stuff. And they'll downplay it. But if they start to lose games and if the season is not going the way they want, I do think that like, it feels to me, Goo, like that's the way that this can stick with this team. That's what I would be skeptical of.
Let me ask you this, and I'm asking you because I know who you are at heart. But do you think you're being fair with that assessment? Like I feel like you're on the sideline of, if this happens, I can double back and say, it was because of this. But if we know, and I believe I know who Kyle is at heart, and he's not perfect, but we know he's damn good at his job, I got to feel like, because I don't know if you do, I feel like the Shanahan accident is past us. So now we got a new episode of owner getting in trouble, two different subject matters. But if that derail him, and now Kyle's back to his superpowers, I don't think this one would derail him. If these dudes know how hard and savage the game is and how much prep goes into it, Evan, I don't feel like the owner getting in trouble. And again, it was embarrassing. It was against the law in Ohio. But damn, I don't want to come off bad here. But, nobody died. He made a mistake. He's going to pay his price, the fines or whatnot. But as far as the ball club, you still got ample time to focus on your job and the Rams.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to derail their season. I don't. Hell, the Shanahan accident may have had more of an ability to do that just because it impacts their head coach. But clearly it won't. I think he's going to be on the sideline, and he looks like he's going to be fine. My just thing is about the distraction of this. That's again why I'm comparing the two teams of the Giants and the Niners, because I think the way they're dealing with this is totally different. The way they've dealt with distractions this season are totally different. And that's why a lot of Niners fans are just like, hell, that's fine. We're going to go play the Rams, and we'll be fine.
And they've had much more success, that outfit, the Niners, than the Giants. And
I don't think that's a coincidence.